Charles is here to offer his perspectives on the collaborative possibilities of the current and future generations of mobile devices.
Thank you. This should be a good segue from lunch, because I'm going to kind of pick up where he left off. And he said 1.2 billion phones were sold last year. There's about 4 billion phones active today in the world. Probably bigger than that. It's going up. What? Yeah. No, it's probably going up, but it's what that means, I think, going forward. I like to look out as far as reasonably possible to try to guess where the world's headed, because it makes for interesting businesses. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not, but they're always interesting. So that's about half the world has mobile phones now, which is just an astounding number. And you saw the graphs, the diagrams earlier about the distribution across the planet. It's really rather extraordinary. Google released some really interesting numbers last month about mobile phone usage and adoption. They track who comes to their properties, obviously, like most sites do, but a little more universal, a little bigger number, a little more reliable statistics, I think. Mobile access to Google sites is up 500% since 2007. It's a 5-fold increase in accessing Google via mobile device. Those are numbers that get people's attention like mine. Maybe even more interestingly, half of all new internet connections made in the last year were made with mobile devices. My own projection, and this will fall on some controversy I would imagine, is that in the next 5 years we're going to see a 2-part phone battle. I think Android, the Google platform that is mostly open source, will probably end up with 50% of the smartphone market, and I think Apple will be very happy with 25%, which is completely contrary to where it is today. Apple has probably 1/3 of the smartphone market, and Android has a very, very, very small, probably sub 1% market, because they just have, like, I don't know if you remember Al's rug, they just have the one phone, one carrier. So I think, but you'll see that change as I think the advantage of openness goes forward, and other handset carriers like Samsung and Motorola and Sony Ericsson and maybe even Nokia adopt the Android open platform. Now, I left my last company after selling it and kind of traveled for a while and didn't do much, and then my wife kicked me out and I had to start a new business. So I looked around at what I thought was the most interesting space. And largely for these numbers like this, my own use of a cell phone, changing over time, my kids' use of a cell phone. My son, for example, does not speak, at least as far as I can tell, but texts about 1,100 text messages a week, which I mark down as good communication skills, but it's a little unusual. But I think that's more common than not. I mean, he uses like 4 minutes on his phone, 1,100 texts, or 4,000 text messages. And I think that's a harbinger of some things to come. So as I looked around, tried to think about what was different today. One of the obvious things that's different is the power that's being brought to the phone. Now, I knew that it was significant, but I actually took some time and went back and tried to pick a point in time in a particular device that was roughly equivalent to the phone. So I looked at a laptop from 2002, and it's 6 pounds versus about 4.5 ounces. CPU is about the same. RAM's the same. Storage is the same. It's half a VGA, so it's about half the screen size, even though it obviously looks much, much smaller. Pixelized, from a pixel standpoint, it's about half the size. It's 1/10 the price, subsidized, of course, but still 1/10 the price. And the battery life, oh, the irony of that little event, is better on the phone. Not great, but better on the phone than my laptop. But wait, there's more, right? I feel like the Australian infomercial guy. GPS, global positioning in 3 different flavors. I don't know if anybody's talked about this, but it's not just satellite. It's cell phone triangulation and Wi-Fi hotspot geolocation, which makes it very effective and very fast in multiple scenarios, including indoors. It's got a camera, not a very good one on this particular phone. Other phones have better ones. It is obviously also a phone and a 3G data network. So it's a laptop in your pocket and a whole lot more. And that brings us to, I think, well, what I hope is the key point of my presentation is that just like when the web first came out in 1993, people put up colored brochures, and it was for a brief period of time called brochureware, because that's what they had, and so they took the old technology for color printing, put it up on the new technology, and went with that. But there are significant differences between computing on a mobile device and computing on a desktop or laptop device. And we need to, if you're going to do something in this space, you need to pay significant attention to what those differences are. So if you only take one thing away, it's not, and I'll have this on a later slide, it's not just a smaller browser. It's different in kind. It's always there. That's a significant difference. It's always on, at least battery power notwithstanding. It's location aware, which is a truly unique opportunity. I don't think there's anything previous that gives us, that informs what that means to be always there. It's touch sensitive. If you haven't played with an iPhone or an Android phone, you should. It's just kind of fun to swoop things around, and there's a real satisfaction there, almost at a visceral level that I think you'll find surprising. Motion control, keynote earlier talked about the accelerometers, very interesting opportunities there that are really largely untapped. And then the multimedia piece, both to capture and consume it, presents us with a whole new space in which to play. And then my own little addition to why this is a new paradigm is if you watch people in line, in their cars at a stoplight, in the doctor's office, there's a while waiting time that phones are now consuming. If you will, interstitial between the rest of our lives. It presents some really interesting opportunities that I'll expand upon later on, including dispute resolution, MEMX concept, which is a kind of memory augmentation piece, because it's always there, always on, and always connected. So we'll go forward and try to think about this new paradigm in the context of what it's going to bring to opportunities, I think. So the iPhone applications, these are just great numbers. There, I said 30% of the smartphone market, half the mobile internet traffic, depending on whose study you believe, 40 to 60% of traffic over the internet from a mobile device is generated from the iPhone, not mobile devices, but just from the iPhone. And that's, I think, largely because the interface is superior and the people that use it tend to do more things online. 20 million sold already, 35 million through the end of the year, and that doesn't count countries like China, where they're negotiating as we speak, and I would expect another few hundred million there in the next couple of years. And the application store, which is what got my attention as a business person, the ability to write an application, put it up on a store, and have somebody take care of the transaction piece of it. So it's obviously been a huge success, 30,000 plus applications. Now, I got to update this slide, 1 billion downloads since the last time I gave this presentation, or this slide anyway. But the most interesting piece on this is you notice at the very bottom here, the icons, there's a G. That's Google's application. And what they did is they took a very simple iPhone application that does almost nothing more than wrap all of their web properties. So if you go into that application, you'll see Mail and Calendar and Maps, and you click on those, they'll go out to the web browser that has all those applications. There's one difference significant, which is the voice search, but we'll leave that aside for right now. But really what they did was wrap their web properties with a G. The effect of that increased access from the iPhone 10 times. Order of magnitude increase just by having one application that wraps it. Okay, that is why I started the company I started, because it's not just enough to have browser-enabled or mobile browser-enabled solutions. Having an application has that kind of impact, people are going to want it. So that's how I got to where I am with the company that I'm working with now. So this is just my perspective. And as if past is prologue, half of it will be wrong. But each new medium has its own rules. As I said before, mobile is not just a tiny browser. It's not just squinting into a small screen, like instead of squinting into a big screen. It's very different. And I highlighted 6 ways in which I think it's different. I already mentioned interstitials. Using a mobile device as a way to fill those momentary gaps in your life, either for education. I have the Kindle reader on my phone. It's really cool. I have a Kindle at home, which I use at night sometimes, but it keeps the page where I left off at night when I usually fall asleep with my nose previously on a piece of paper, but now on an e-ink page. It's not quite the same, I don't know. But I have the nice leather case, so if I close it and put my cheek on it, it's not really too bad. But I fall asleep, read the book on the Kindle, and then if I have time in the car, or I'm waiting for an appointment, I can pull up the Kindle app on my iPhone and pick up exactly where I left off. That is really cool. I mean, I don't know how much you read, but being able to fill in those gaps with the same book and not have to carry it around, and it knows where I left off. I don't have to find it from the nose print. It's just really a very nice approach. So the interstitial piece is I think, an important paradigm piece. Memory augmentation. This is both obvious and not so obvious, I think. Being able to have multiple applications always there, always on, so you can look stuff up, whether it's current news, stock reports, look up something you should remember but forgot. There's all sorts of opportunities around memory augmentation. Location-based services, I'll talk more about each of these in a minute. Social networking, there's a hugely humorous comedy routine done by a guy named Rob Becker called Defending the Cavemen. If you've never had a chance to see it, it's well worth seeing. And he talks about the difference between men and women, and men are hunters and women are gatherers. And that informs every aspect of our life. And I think if you apply his humorous lessons and the anthropological lessons of hunter-gatherer culture, you could probably write applications using location-based services and social networking that really appeal to a lot of people. So maybe an odd series of segues there, but I think there's a lot of truth in that. Remote operation, because this is a device with a universal programmability, there's no reason that iPhone can't operate anything you want it to operate. From home automation using some predecessor of X10, to surgical procedures, to turning your car on when it's cold. The sky's kind of the limit there, but some device, some network connection, infinite programmability, you could probably operate anything. I'll have some examples of that in a minute. And finally, mobile presence. Just because you have a website as a university or as an orchestra or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame does not mean you have a mobile presence. They are different things with different opportunities. And that's actually where iNomadix is focused, and I'll show you just a tiny bit of what we're doing there. So here's some interstitials. As I was thinking about this presentation, I've never done this presentation before. This isn't like part of my shtick. So I had to create this all from scratch, and I was thinking about what applications I use. So I came up with a couple of things that I use. There's poker, which is fun to play. iSteam, which is you blow in the microphone, it steams up your screen, and then you can put graffiti on it. It's just kind of stupid funny. Yeah, it's stupid funny, but it works. You gotta laugh. Sketches, which is really the same thing, but you can save it and do much more sophisticated network diagrams with your finger. And, well, not sophisticated, I guess. That overstates it by a lot. But you can do diagrams on the screen and save them and ship them around. Ocarina, which you probably have heard about, which is the little flute thing you blow. I won't show you that because that's gotten a lot of coverage. But I did pick two that are either hilariously funny or don't get as much coverage as you might like. So let me just hop to that here. This first one is Pocket God. And okay, we're going to have a real short. See if we can do this. There we go. So this is a game. You come up with an island, a bunch of natives on it, and as you'll see in a minute, you are the god. complete with lightning bolts, sharks, torture. This is not approved by the Obama administration. You can add more, right? No problem, you kill a few. There's an outhouse, fishing, javelins, tornadoes. If you ever feel powerless, this is a fun game, I think, to play. Occupy a few minutes of your life. So that's Pocket Guide. And it's just something we found. It's not something we wrote. Let me show you the other one, which is Leon Theremin in 1928 invented a sound that you will all find very familiar if you watch science fiction. So 80 years ago he invented this, and somebody in the last 8 months put it up on the iPhone. You'll see what it does. I don't need to explain much here. Sound familiar? And with big speakers, it's really good. It scares the hell out of my kids. Good for Halloween. There's all sorts of other cool musical applications, but this one didn't get nearly enough credit for taking an 80-year-old invention and putting it on the phone. And then I'll show you some other stuff later on. Oops. So interstitials. Now on the memory augmentation piece, there's Wikipedia. You could this whole session for being my electrician. Wikipedia, which is it's interesting because you can get the Wikipedia from a browser, right, on the phone or on any phone. With a browser, you get to Wikipedia, but it's a pain to kind of type it. Wikipedia makes that much easier. Gives you a downloadable version of Wikipedia, and it's just a fast way to look stuff up quick and seem really smarter than you are. Likewise, the Google search routine has, with this last release, voice recognition. So you could, and they use there's a proximity sensor in the iPhone too, which is kind of neat. If you ever noticed, when you hold it up to your face, the screen goes off. So your cheek doesn't actually cheek dial somebody. But it also is used to turn on the Google voice recognition piece, which is a clever use of that. So you hold it up there and it asks you where to search, and you can just speak a search request in, and it works reasonably well. I've got a couple friends that use iBirds, which is this gigantic database of, not surprisingly, birds, but it has bird songs and pictures of birds, and I think the Pro version has a recording device where, just like butterflies in Texas, you can report where you saw this and keep your own diary. Very interesting. iHarmony, a couple of musician friends swear by that as a way to do chords and key transitions and things, because it's just stuff that normal human beings can't remember. One of my favorites is Netter's Anatomy. I can't explain why, but it's got truly cool and gruesome pictures of people without skin on. And I just have one here with the face and it's used, I think, seriously used in medical school, but they have for $40 you can buy an iPhone version. I think it's really cool. G-Contacts this was just, I was coming to this event and I had my assistant put in the names of all the other presenters into a Google application, and I thought, well, that'd be cool if I could just take that. So one of my developers wrote a contact application that brought everybody's pictures, about 20 people. So I have everybody, not everybody in here, but everybody who was going to present this. And I had a bio, I had the pictures put up here, and so, because my brain is really bad, so I could look at this and go, oh yeah, hi, how you doing? And remember. That, I think, has a real future. So we may actually turn that into some kind of commercial product in the future, because I think most people have a real serious challenge with remembering faces and names and coming up with bio. So if I sound smarter than I am and I remember your name, it's not me, it's my iPhone. And then finally, the memory augmentation piece is dispute resolution. So I'm sitting on the couch, we're watching TV, and there's a historical drama on, and my wife says something about the French Revolution, and I say, no, honey, I don't think that's right. I think that was, somebody else or something. This happens to you? And so, no, I think you're wrong. And so I look it up on my phone.
That's the antidote for the Simon kids.
Yeah. So I look it up on the phone. I go, no, look, see, and prove her wrong. And I've done it enough that last time I did it, she said, you're going to buy me my own iPhone because I can't see you being right all the time. I did not point out to her that it doesn't make her any more right. I will when the time comes. But an important use, at least in my life. Location-based services. Google Maps is the obvious one. If you haven't actually experienced a GPS unit, I'd be surprised. But having it always with you has some surprising benefits. I used to travel a lot more, but I travel some now. And just being able to pull it out and see what's near you. There's a bunch of services I use. Zagat's. Usually the hotel gets picked for you, but you get to pick where you eat. So I use Zagat's a lot. It pops up and tells you, where you are. And what restaurants are near you. I figure if they're in Zagat's, if they at least care about their food, that's enough of a qualification for me. There's a great application that I don't think anybody really knows about called JourneyCast. It's available in the App Store. It allows you to stream, as long as the application's open, your location to a server that they run. And you can take photos, and you can post audio, and you can post text, and it kind of puts those in line with all the other location data. And then it posts it all in a KML file, and you can view it on Google Maps. Very, very cool, very simple application. But we used this last year when we were doing a bicycle trip. And it didn't work everywhere because the AT&T coverage isn't great, but where it worked, it was pretty slick. Where it would post our location, my wife could see where we were, my daughter and I bicycled, see where we were and what we were doing, and take photos, and we posted them on there too. So it's a very nice idea to broadcast a journey in a very simple way. Guy deserves more attention than he's getting. Graffitio, which is not a great application, but is an example of a really interesting piece of this paradigm shift. Graffitio allows you to find your location and then post a message in that mythical land of longitude and latitude. And then somebody can come after you and see that graffiti that you posted. And it can be messages, it can be obscenities, it can be anything you want it to be. So it's kind of a little off the wall, but it is an interesting use of virtual graffiti that's location-based. Trapster is probably the second most used app on that, and that's speed trap avoidance. So if any of you drive fast and get tickets, I highly recommend Trapster. It tells you in an audio alert before you get to a speed trap that there are known speed traps about. If you drive the same route, it's probably not so useful, but if you drive in foreign lands where cops are crafty, having Trapster will save you a lot of money. The last one is actually an Android application. One of the things that the iPhone doesn't allow you to do is background processing. So if you like Trapster, to run it, you have to leave it on all the time. And if you turn it off, it's off, and there's no background alert. Android, on the other hand, as a platform, allows you to run applications in the background at the cost of your battery power, but at least there's an option. Locale was the application that won Google's best of competition they had. They won $250,000 or something. And what Locale does is make your iPhone location aware for all purposes. So you can, it's very, very slick. I have the Android phone here in my briefcase. If you want, I can show it to you. It allows you to basically draw circles on a map that said, this is my office. In my office, I want my phone to behave the following way. At home, I want my phone to behave this way. Linked to my calendar, if I have a meeting in my calendar, automatically silence my phone. It allows your phone to be a lot smarter than you are. And it's very cool. And they've built an API because they realize that that's a product but not a business. We built an API so other people can write against that API and do other continuous location-based tracking. There's companies that have like Yelp and a couple others that have released friend and family applications where you can track people where they are. We actually prototyped one called Tribes, where a small group of your friends you share the application and would post your progress wherever you were. The problem with doing it on the iPhone, the reason we didn't release it was because you had to actually be in the application for it to work. But if you could, in your family, for example, or a small group of service technicians who needed to know where each of them were at a particular point in time, it would be extremely useful. But you can do that on Android, and that's what Locale, the company's counting on doing it. It's a real interesting choice. Some other things that I think would be cool. This is the original Cleveland Zoo key, my copy from when I was a child. For those of you who are in Cleveland probably remember this. You'd walk up to any of the exhibits like the elephants, stick it in there and turn it, and it would start talking and tell you all about that. And when you got a zoo key, you were cool. So that's mine. I should probably take a picture of mine and put it up there. But just imagine using the iPhone, location aware, it knows where you are, knows which animals you're near, and it could say, off to your left, actually it couldn't say that, off to your north, you'll see the pachyderm exhibit and then tell you all you need to know about elephants, including things like audio, video, text, anything you wanted to do around that. So one of these days I got to get to the zoo and pitch them on this idea because it's a great new elephant key for the zoo. On this spot, it's kind of the same idea, but from a tourist standpoint. And there's a series of applications that are working on, a series of companies that are working on applications that give you location-based tourist information. There's obviously a lot of money to be made in location-based advertising. I think there's an adoption curve that needs to be gotten through before that becomes a reality. But again, I think you'll see that sooner rather than later. Social networking applications, the hunter-gatherer model. Just imagine people out texting each other. I see my kids do it, obviously. Facebook applications, LinkedIn, Twitter clients, all those things are available on your phone now. YouTube and Looped, which is the image I have right there, where you can, with your permission, tell your friends where you are when you use the application, and then share information about sites and things between each other. I think there's still something not quite there yet. Like I have Looped, I don't use it. I can't exactly tell you why, but when they figure that out, I'll answer both questions. Remote operation. iTunes Remote is really cool. It lets you use the phone to operate the iTunes on your desktop or your laptop. So I can sit on my couch after having won the argument with my wife and turn the stereo on really loud. Simplify Media, which is allows you to stream your large selection of music at home over Wi-Fi or the 3G network to your phone, so you're never away from that one piece of music that you didn't bring with you. I found that to be very useful because I always leave something off because it's not infinite capacity, but I've got everything there through the Simplify Media application. Mobile files is a way to drag files to your iPhone and look at them in different views. Android Scan is another Android application that the iPhone doesn't have a good enough camera for a couple of reasons to do barcode scanning. Everybody always says, which one is that?
Clarify. Adds a lens.
Oh, does it? Yeah, okay.
Reads barcodes, goes right out, tells you the price of Best Buy.
Yeah, you got to add some hardware to get that.
Just add up close lens.
But the Android phone has a better camera, and they have an application called Android Scan that does barcodes. So if you're in the store and you barcode something, it'll go out and get all the data it can find, matches that barcode. Extremely useful. I would be very surprised if the next iPhone that comes out this summer didn't have a much better lens on it, and you'll see this kind of functionality on the phone. The image I show you there is DVR Remote, which is not written by TiVo, but it's for TiVo. and it allows you to run your TiVo from your phone, which is of marginal utility, except when you get to typing stuff in. And then it's a huge benefit because typing on the TiVo thing just doesn't work. If you ever tried it, so I use that one with some frequency. Mobile presence. This is the space where we spend most of our time from a development standpoint. So organizations, retail organizations with, I can't tell you who it is, but there's a shoe retailer in major American malls who has an online web purchasing solution, and it generates a significant amount of revenue. Now, who bought shoes on their phone? I had no idea, but apparently it's hundreds of thousands of dollars every month in shoes being purchased on phones. So they're building an iPhone application to sell their shoes. It's a big deal, I guess, because you never know when you're sitting in the doctor's office and you realize you got to have a new pair of shoes on. I can't figure that one out. But
My daughter,
yeah,
sees someone in a pair of shoes and says, "I want that."
maybe that's a whole application, right? Photo, image, shoes, buy, right? Maybe tie all those things together.
Instant gratification today.
I guess, yeah. That's a nice outfit. Click mine. maybe that's where I'm going. I like this. So, but retail is one opportunity. Venues, probably a little more, at least from my perspective, sensible. Any organization with events, an event calendar, multiple locations, or people that come and don't know where they're going, like me coming here today, contact information, tickets, webcams. Obviously, you saw, if you were in the earlier Apple presentation, he showed a whole bunch of university applications. Case should have one. So we should get on that because it makes a lot of sense. Okay, good. Okay. Well, I've seen the browser one, but you need a full application. Manufacturers, for catalogs, field service personnel. We're in conversations with one company that maintains McDonald's equipment, and they want to be able to scan a barcode on the equipment and download the manual in real time to the phone, so that the guy can look at the phone and then get consultation advice by showing an image and somebody on the other end. I mean, you can see all sorts of opportunities there for having a mobile presence for manufacturers. Field personnel, medical personnel, service personnel. I think again you can probably figure that out. Any nomadic tribe, anybody who's out and about in a group or connected to a group could probably have a mobile presence application. So just to kind of highlight this: news, events, maps, multimedia, contact information, shopping, on and offline catalogs. I have a real quick, so this is just a very short demo of the Rock Hall application. Oh, actually, I don't. No, I don't need speakers for this one. We just put this together for the Rock Hall recently. Events, you saw the news feed, the RSS feed, the Twitter feed. I showed you this is the inductees. Because it's on an iPhone, you can actually go into iTunes and buy the music. Not too many other organizations have that capability. A YouTube channel that you can go scroll through. YouTube player on both this device and the Android is really good. Just like watching an old movie. Flickr, photo stream, contact database, but as you can imagine, all kind of consolidated in one single application. So that's what iNomadics is doing.
Link to Last.fm.
Pardon me?
Last.fm.
If your iTunes is, yes. If we're not, and we don't.
Is that a proposal or is it actually accomplished?
No, it's where I'm trying to get them to pay me.
Absolutely.
This is a real application. They're trying to find money. So, and there's the mapping piece, which is great. You come into Rock Hall, it comes right up on the Google Maps, and then there's pins around it for parking in restaurants and hotels. I mean, any organization would do it. We did this kind of as a prototype for them.
I can imagine you linking that to all kinds of people who are, like, say, wanting to ticket for tourism to Cleveland, or they could buy
Yeah, and
If I-
hotels would pay to be on that map. It would be, makes a lot of sense. So I think that's about it. Anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to field them. The only other thing, I have a full-blown commercial. We're always looking to hire people.
Charlie, I've got a question for you regarding the use of a lens. I always thought that it'd be really cool to have either binoculars, telescope, or magnifying glass. I haven't been able to find a good magnifying glass app, but I'm thinking of all, especially as the population ages, and I know my grandma used to carry around a little magnifying glass around her neck, right? There's, you should see the menus, but it'd be nice to have it integrated. Why can't you just use, you know, if you could make the image bigger, if you could pitch out instantaneously, just
Well, it does.
exactly real time, but
It does do that. Most of the
you have to take a
applications.
picture of the thing first, though.
Yeah, true.
So if you could-
Camera app in the app store that allows you to like zoom in, like.
What is it?
I think there's a camera app in the app store, and I know there was.
You know, I think it's after you take the picture, isn't it?
After you, I think it is after you take the picture.
The issue with.
It's a resolution issue, but
Yeah, well, I know that the new phone will have better camera. I know they're going to have video. I don't know. But I presume they're going to have video in the next release and a 3.2 megapixel camera.
No, as part of the proximity where you're at, that and time together, like if you take your phone and you go into church, it'd be great to not have it ring.
Or to have it
What time
ring.
church is, and where you're at, so when you're in there, or if you go in this meeting, you could say, go on buzz
Yeah.
for an amount of time, because everybody forgets to take the switch back off, and then it's sitting on the headboard buzzing away here at night, and you missed that $1 million.
Yeah, Locale also has time, that Android program also does time of day sensitivity too. So
Time of day and position.
And Locale, yeah, does both.
You anything with QR codes yet?
Are we? No.
Then you said there was 30,000 apps on the store. I guess the coolest apps, and I was wondering how you differentiate yourself in the cloud of applications like that. But just looking at your production thing, I realized you just have to have a cool app.
Well, we're taking a different approach. We're not selling through the store. We're selling to people who ought to be on the store. So I'm going to make more money. I'm not going to make my money 99.
Location-based advertising for your app.
I suppose, but I'd
People walk
rather.
by and say, hey, you want the...
Yeah, I suppose we could do that.
Well, one of the big ones, the Palm, used to be really handy. They'd go to major trade shows, and you'd hot sync the Palm, and you went to the trade show, and you had all the booths, their numbers, you could mark which ones you wanted to go see, or if you stop at the phone and you go, this is pretty cool, and you mark it. Then it'd end up in your address book, it had the websites, and everything.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm surprised I haven't seen those
And that
apps.
really,
That would be
really
good.
worked well with the Palm.
Yeah.
I took the stupid Palm just for that,
Yeah, I
because
do that.
you go to the major, like CES or RSNA, those big trade shows, man, it's better than driving around and book this deck, and then you still gotta go back, and it's automatically in your phone list.
Yeah.
Contact us, it's super.
It's funny being in this space is all like being a doctor. You go to a cocktail party and people go up to the doctor going, I get this pain. Well, I get this idea for an iPhone application. And they're all good too, just not enough time.
You mentioned the Android as taking over in the next, is it by 2014, I think?
Yes,
Do you mind showing it?
Yeah,
I've seen it online, but I've never seen one in person.
No, I mean, that's a wild ass guess, right? So I could be, if you paid me enough money, I could be a consultant.
No, do you base that statistic though on just because Google's taking over everything?
Hardly, but mostly because it's open. And Apple's, in my estimation, Apple's DNA is a 25% market share. But well, they could be proved wrong.
Some of those Apple iPhone statistics are also touch pushing them through on ad mod and some other stuff.
That's true. That's true.
So it's a little bit skewed, but it's still coming down to a small device. It's a monster.
Yeah, we much prefer developing on Android, but there's just no market.
That's what I was going to ask, is it a difficulty transporting your concept from one platform to the other? Is it
Yes and no. A lot of the hardware is similar. The development environment's entirely different language. So you can't just move it over. You have to rewrite it. To the extent that you've written a lot of back-end service stuff, which is actually part of what we're doing, then it's less duplication, but it's Java on the Android and Objective-C on the iPhone. And there's no cross compilers or anything.
Emulator.
Yeah. Nothing like that.
I know, but you can't. I know.
What kind of skill sets do you look for somebody you say you're always hiring?
We're looking for Objective-C developers, which is not easy to find, but we've done some internal training on Java developers. My last company was a Java company, and the transition's not that difficult. Conceptually, it's OO. You learn a different toolkit in the Cocoa Touch SDK.
You know, iPhone 3.0 is going to have background processing capability.
It will not. And again, I don't know that. It will not. It's a battery life check. They don't believe they can afford to let the world run wild on their phone. Which may be true.
Well, like iCloud runs in the background.
What?
When it goes to sleep, iCloud keeps recording.
When it goes to sleep, though, yeah. But you can't have another application open like that.
Anybody else? Thank you all for your, what?
I was just gonna say, time for one or two more questions.
Well, if that's it then, thank you all for coming.